Professional football in America is a special game. A unique game. Played nowhere else on earth. It is a rare game. The men who play it make it so, make it so, make it so, make it so.
WestOne Radio!
It's time! It's time from the Dago Dungeon. That's right, Murph bringing it 110%. Woo!
Why should we even be interested in what you have to say?
Shut up, Sonny. How many times am I going to yell at you in this segment?
I don't give a fuck if you run a thin league and you're all bad.
It's not Sunday no more, you can catch.
And I'm not your bro. I'm not. Don't ever call me your bro. I'm never gonna be bros. I'm not your bro.
What did you do, stupid? You didn't push the right button.
I see this guy on Facebook tripping with K-Matt, tripping with West. They're talking, they're joking. Okay, he's not a bad guy.
Come on!
Welcome to the show, Alan, Execution Double 9.
I'm not fat, I'm big bone.
What's that, he's fat?
What's up, Alan? You rocked me. That was embarrassing. I was texting Josh the whole time. What, was he going to give you pointers?
Hey, baby! We're going to be here all day, baby! I like this kind of party!
Welcome once again back into the palatial Sports Dago Studio South here in lovely Middle Tennessee. I am your host, Murph, the Raider Gamer. We'll be here for, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, talking about a little Madden 15 football, talking about a little league we like to play in called WestOne, and that is a online Madden League made up of 31 fantastic owners, all competing regularly in Madden 15, and it's boy, it's a lot of fun. Anyways, so thanks for joining us here in the Dago Dungeon here on WestOne Radio. I am the Raider Gamer. You can reach me at the Raider Gamer on Twitter. You can reach me on Facebook at the Raider Gamer. You can reach me at the Raider Gamer. My Xbox tag. The only thing you can't reach me at is on Twitch because someone stole it and I'm mad at them and I don't know who it is, but whatever. I'm just the Raider Gamer there. All right. I am your host here on WestOne Radio, but I can't do it alone. You know, much like I mentioned last week, much like Lando Calrissian had 9 Numb to help him pilot the Millennium Falcon when he went to destroy Death Star 2. You know, there's a certain gangster that I'm fond of named Jabba the Hutt. You know, Jabba can't do everything on his own. There's no way that he could, be the scum and villainy that he represents on his own. No, he's got to have a co-pilot. He's got to have a shotgun. And that beast's name is Salacious Crumb. So welcome in my own little Salacious Crumb, Auden. How are you tonight?
I am doing great, Josh. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, Salacious Crumb had got to be arguably one of the better jobs, right? I mean, he was hitched to the most powerful gangster in the galaxy.
I mean, that's pretty good when you have someone like that on your side. That's usually someone that you do want on your side. So, and if you're comparing yourself to Jabba the Hutt, I mean, you already have the physical appearances. I'm sure K-Matt can tell on the live video feed. That's why he takes his shirt off and gets all hot and bothered every week. So I think we're already off to a good start tonight.
We are off to a good start, Alan. Auden's our resident.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Our resident Madden gangster. So welcome into the show. Alan, it's good to have you.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Well, it feels good to be here this week. It feels good to be here every week. As our listeners know, I am not a Dago. I'm not coming from the Dago Dungeon, but I am coming to you from the Mariachi Dungeon here in Eastside San Jose, just a few miles south of Levi Stadium. If you hear some background music, that's just because it's party time. It's a Saturday night here in Eastside San Jose, so it's a celebration going on tonight. So.
Nothing? That's it? I throw out the mariachi call to you and I get nothing in response?
Well,
hopefully I said that loud enough to where your neighbors heard and they're like, huh?
Well, here's the thing. You are like, what, a quarter Mexican or something like that?
I'm like an eighth. Yeah, I really am. Yeah.
Okay, I'm 0% Mexican, even though I'm kind of like an adopted Mexican, the way our father is an adopted Italian. But I'm still white. I can't do the thingy. Like I can't do it.
Yeah, it's in me, man. It's in me. I'm proud of it. Proud of it. Part Mexican, part Sicilian, part Irish, part German. Man, I'm telling you. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Alan, let's man, what do we want to get to first here? You know, we got so much going on in our league. Once again, we are here talking about Madden 15 football. We are talking about our Xbox One Madden League, WestOne. We are now moving into week 4. For anybody listening to us live, guys, the league has advanced. Sorry, I was a little bit late on that. We were doing some show prep, and I didn't have time to quite jump on it, but we are advanced at this point. So we're going to jump into talking about some scores. Real quick, though, Alan, let's kind of, before we go full dive into the scores, I do want to bring up some, there's a few different topics that have been, I'm not going to call them heated, but at least on the forefront of our league this past couple of weeks. And one of those has been kicking, Alan. The kicking game was thrown out there to maybe there was a glitch in the kicking game. I don't necessarily think it's a glitch, but I do think that it's broken. And what I mean by that is the kicking game before, as long as you had a kicker that had adequate enough kick power and you got it relatively close as far as your kick meter went, as far as directionally, you could make a pretty lengthy kick. You used to give me a bad time back in the day with Sebastian Janikowski when he was at the height of his 98 kick power, that all the Raiders had to do was make it to the shield. If I made it to the shield, I could line up Seabass and I could boot those 60-yard field goals. You know, it's kind of gone, and it's been reduced more and more over the past few iterations of Madden. But this year, the mechanic is if you miss it, you don't just miss it a little bit, you miss it a lot. And Alan, last night, I was on the wrong end of that and had 3 field goals that were 100% shanks to the left. Now, they were all hit from the right hash mark, and I was aiming just inside the right upright on the goalpost and hit them perfectly square. As square as I've ever hit any other field goal in 20 years of playing this football game. And that football started off great and then took a hard hook like a bowling ball to the left. And I missed him by 15 yards. It was big. It was in it. There's a little press box, a cameraman area in the end zones. The balls were flying into that. Alan, it's concerning to me, and I'm at a point now where instead of turning the ball over at the 35-yard line, I'm a lot more inclined to go for it on 4th down, and it's now going to change my approach when I'm on my opponent's side of the field. Now, Alan, I said a lot there, and I'm curious to hear what your feedback is on, have you noticed this? Have you seen it? Have you not only firsthand, but within our league with other online games? And do you think it's a problem?
Well, I can't say that I've seen it, and that's just because I don't kick field goals. I score touchdowns. But joking aside, actually, I do not know anything about this glitch, and that's coming from a serious non-junk talker point of view. In fact, I want to say it was K-Matt, the one and only K-Matt, our beloved K-Matt, who made the post on the Facebook page the other day, and my response was, "What glitch?" And I clicked his little link, and I still say, "What glitch?" the kicking game for me, from what I've experienced, both on my opponents and myself, has seemed to be the way it should be. I haven't noticed any problems, but as I know from being a gamer my entire life, it's kind of a faulty logic to say I haven't experienced it, so there's no problem. So I'm fortunate enough to not have experienced it, and unless one of my opponents can call the show tonight and tell me that it's happened to them during our games, I'm still unaware of what this glitch even is, and I'm fortunate enough to not have encountered it yet.
Well, and here's the thing I think that is so tough about it is that I'm not so sure that it's a glitch. I think that it might be a poorly executed way of the developers putting in the shank into a field goal, just like some feel that it's poorly executed the way that they have a mistimed or a missed throw. When that quarterback's inaccuracy shows up, you're not just missing a receiver, you're throwing it into the freaking fourth row. And that's what I'm wondering. And if that's the case, then it's not a glitch. And so you can't patch that. That's something that's built into the. Look, I'm not a game engineer, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But from the way I understand it, if there's something wrong with the code, you can go in and patch it. But if they built that into the game, that these guys are going to be erratic when they are inaccurate, just like the quarterbacks are, there ain't no fixing that. And if there ain't no fixing that, I'm not doing it. I'm not. My game last night was way too close, and that there were other reasons why I lost. But if I'd have made those 3 very makeable field goals that, for the most part, I would always make in the past, then I wouldn't have lost. So that's what I'm curious is if it's a glitch or what more I think it's just poorly executed. I think they just did a bad job of introducing that game mechanic.
Well, it certainly wouldn't surprise me if EA just flubbed a new game mechanic. I mean, I have not been shy about my criticisms of EA for the past however many years that I've been playing Madden, so it wouldn't surprise me. I do like the idea that kicking accuracy makes more of an impact now because you are right. There used to be a time when all you would look for out of a kicker was kick power. All you would look for out of a quarterback was throw power. You didn't care about anything else because that stuff didn't matter, the accuracies. And now it does, and that's a good thing, and I actually like what's been done with the quarterback accuracy. I know some passes go a little bit too erratic, but I feel like that's been toned down from past years. I wish I could give a more honest opinion about the kicking issue. I just haven't seen it in action, so I can't offer up a criticism of that other than theory crafting, which is about what we just said, that if they've just flubbed the code.
All right, fair enough. Let's start talking about some good stuff. Alan, it is week 4 we are going into week 4 here in our WestOne Madden League, but prior to that, you had to have week 2 and week 3. Of course, we talked about week 1 on last week's show. That was a lot of weeks, kind of like Josh Norman's game. So let's run down the scores here, Alan. Let's talk about the week 2 games. Let's get into it. Alan, starting us off were the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Alan, you don't have to go much further than the top stat line, and that was Nick Foles. He throws 4 interceptions on the day, and the Colts, in a boat race, beat the Eagles 41-0.
Well, this score doesn't surprise me. I said on the air last week, if I could get my words out, K-Matt, I believe, in the past has been one of the top owners in this league, and he came back and recovered from that very close loss to, I think, another top owner in this league. I am concerned about the new coach over there in Philadelphia putting up a goose egg in his debut. Is this what he's going to have to show going forward?
Well, we don't know, but we do know one thing, and that's that the Buffalo Bills, for whatever reason in our league, are always a contender. Of course, last year helmed by one Justin Tsai, who had incredible success with them. Let's see, this year in the AFC East, we have, what's not Justin anymore? Oh, it is Justin. What am I?
Justin had the Jaguars last
I'm
year.
sorry.
Let's get it together, Josh.
I'm sorry. I know you think with all this stuff, all this preparation, you think I could get it figured out. Anyways, sorry, Justin. Yes, Justin with the Buffalo Bills is off to a hot start. He takes the Dolphins out 24-0 as Mike Williams goes 117 yards on 7 receptions.
And we got to talk about the defense right now. This is 24-0 last week, and he held the Bears to 3 in week 1. Wow, let's pick up Buffalo for your fantasy team on defense. That's a strong defense right there.
Alan, I've been saying it since the beginning, since the preseason, since the game came out, and I saw the Tennessee Titans and their attributes of their players, and I said they are going to be a good Madden team because they are stacked at the spots that count. When you look at the attributes that have an impact by position, the Tennessee Titans, despite the fact that they've lost some players, because we're still waiting for Steve-O to get up and running, despite that, they are stacked. And Allen, the CPU Titans took out the user ran Dallas Cowboys. We felt bad for Lanning that happened, but he's not the only one that's felt the wrath of the CPU. I certainly did in the preseason, and I know other guys have as well. The Tennessee Titans destroy the Dallas Cowboys 59-27.
And I gave a lot of credit to Thomas Lanning last week for his showing against me. And we do have a lot of games on our list this week where the CPU came out and beat a live owner, and that might be something that we've talked about as a league. But whether it's a human or a computer, you can't. Tony Romo cannot go Tony Romo and throw 5 interceptions in the game. That's just unacceptable. Why couldn't you do that last week, Thomas?
Speaking of a lot of interceptions, someone tell the Patriots and Matt Maturo that this is a sim league as Tom Brady throws 4 picks against the Vikings. Terry is way too good of an owner and way too much of a grinder to give him the ball back. You can't do that when he runs the kind of offense that he does. And Terry certainly did grind up the New England Patriots 26-20.
Has Tom Brady thrown 4 interceptions in his entire career in real life? It's obvious, exaggeration. But Terry didn't even need Adrian Peterson to get the job done. Only 42 yards, and he still came out with the win. That's pretty good when you can win without an impact day from your star player.
Well, Adrian Peterson was held short, but Steven Jackson certainly wasn't in week 2. As Steven Jackson recently departed from the Atlanta Falcons, is now running for the Baltimore Ravens. And Allen, he ran for 187 yards and a touchdown. All you guys, including me, that think speed matters, well, apparently it doesn't matter to the Baltimore Ravens, as they, again, another boat race away from the Pittsburgh Steelers, 46-21.
Well, and who needs Ray Rice's stiff arm when you have Steven Jackson busting 187 yards in a game? That's a good showing. Despite the losing effort, I do like Brian Hoyer's stat line over here. 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. The team came up short, but Pittsburgh might have a little something there with a quarterback they stole from a division rival.
Next up, we have the San Diego Superchargers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. I know they're our 2 favorite teams. You and I, huge Chargers and Seahawks fans. The Seahawks, despite Percy Harvin, 4 receptions, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns, man, they went down in flames, 41-20 to the San Diego Chargers.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was another one of our CPU games, and we kind of had a discussion about this on the forums where due to a desync, Preston had to restart the game and kind of got jobbed out of a loss. I'm not going to cry too many tears about it since that is a division rival and that helps me out, but I will feel a little bit bad if my division title this year is only by about a game or half a game over Preston.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because we are certainly going to get to the desync issue later on in the show. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the Raiders taking on the Houston Texans. Raiders moved to 2-0 and another grinding game and beat the Texans 21-22 as Tywan Jones comes up with 2 interceptions in the game.
Well, 2 interceptions and nice little stat line from your rookie quarterback that you placed into the starting role his first year. Not exactly a controversial decision when the competition is Matt Schaub, but you gotta like 265 yards and a touchdown and 26 of 30 completions. I don't know if I've ever seen a Josh Murphy-controlled team have that high of a completion percentage. Good job.
Thank you. Derek Carr was certainly on a roll. Next up, we have the St. Louis Rams, your third favorite team, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gosh, I don't know. They're on my list of hated teams, too, after they beat down the Oakland Raiders in the Super Bowl. Anyways, Madden terms, the Rams take on those Buccaneers in another big win as the Rams walk away from the Buccaneers 40-20. You know, the Buccaneers quarterback, Mike Glennon, throws 4 interceptions. What's the matter? Mike Kafka can't get a couple of snaps in practice? I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, this game actually scares me because we already have William Alexander's a former Super Bowl champion in this league, and now the Rams pick up a decisive win. And I'm looking over here at the Buccaneers. We talked about them during the Assassins tournament and potentially on purpose throwing those games to get an epic low score. I think he forgot that we're actually in the regular season now when you look at 4 picks from Mike Glennon, which you brought up.
Well, you know, MD Will is no joke, and I think when we talked about when we were on our projection show, he was one that was definitely out there. Of course, you know, there's the obvious favorites, and I picked Norman to win it all in the NFC. But you know, Will is a previous Super Bowl champion in our league, and the Rams are one of those teams like the Titans. They're good Madden-wise. They have the right attributes at the right positions. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Washington football team. And the Jaguars won a close one, 23-20, as rookie Blake Bortles throws Allen 343 yards and a touchdown in this game. Good for you, Jacksonville.
Well, I'm still a little bit hesitant to make too much analysis on this because I believe this is still simmed computer games going on in Jacksonville over there. But I was
hoping Lumpkins was going to pull out a big one.
Well, again, going back to what I said last week, Lumpkins is so good he doesn't even have to play to get the win. But most impressive here is Robert Griffin still healthy through 2 weeks.
All right. Boy, the favorite teams just keep on rolling. And next up for me, it's the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos. Oh, my heart's just a flutter. Just so much fondness and just reverence and love for these teams, mainly because Peyton Manning can't get out of his own dang way and throws 4 interceptions, Washburn. 4 interceptions. Attaboy. And the Chiefs, and I think that was a computer game too because Scotty hadn't taken over those Kansas City Chiefs yet, so good for those Chiefs. 22-0 over the Denver Donkeys.
Well, I never thought I would see the day in real life or Madden when Alex Smith has 311 yards and Peyton Manning has 221. I think those stat lines got reversed. And again, Tim Cotty, another one of those, is just too good. He doesn't even have to play his games to win. We'll talk about that a little bit later, Josh, in your AFC West.
Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals as they take on the New York Football Giants. You know, there's been a lot of Raider greats. There's been a lot of great Raider quarterbacks. Carson Palmer was not one of them, but he certainly has been for the Arizona Cardinals so far in real life and in Madden, where in week 2, he throws for 195 yards. Not a huge yardage total, but man, love this. 3 touchdowns and only 1 pick to go along with it.
Well, this is kind of a scary game for me because we got R.J. Ramondo and the Cardinals. In my opinion, one of the underrated players in our league. He doesn't get a lot of credit because he hasn't won a title yet, but I think he's one of those guys that can win it on any given year. And to drop 31-9 over the Giants, I hate to see that, especially when in Week 3, which has already been played, but I have him on the docket, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later, too.
The Green Bay Packers and Josh Norman were my pick to win it all. So, of course, when they took on the New York Jets, it had to have been an easy game for Josh Norman, right? I believe we have the superior one that runs those New York Jets. While the superior one has been a great opponent, he certainly should be able to stack up with the talent versus the talent of the Jets should not be able to stack up with the talent of the Green Bay Packers. Josh Norman is a proven long-time postseason winner in our league. This should have been an easily won game for Mr. Norman, but it wasn't, Norman. And the Jets win this game 41-38 as Michael Vick goes for 167 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Then I'm sure at some point he sneezed on the sideline and cracked 3 ribs. So Geno Smith came in and threw for 133 more yards, 2 interceptions, because that's what Geno does, but another touchdown to go along with it. And the Jets win a close one, 41-38.
Well, I've been saying all summer that it's not about the team you use, it's about the person on the controllers. And Josh Norman this year is proving that. He's got a stacked team, and he's 0 for 2 coming out of this game. And you give up 300 yards combined to Geno Smith and Michael Vick. Step your game up, Norman.
All right, the New Orleans Saints and longtime owner IROC T took on the Cleveland Browns, right? This was the team, Alan, that we were talking about was going to be must-see football before the season started, because we were talking about how dynamic Johnny Manziel was, and whether you love him, you hate him, you like him, you don't like him, you love Cleveland, you hate Cleveland. This was going to be much must-watch football. Well, so far, Johnny Manziel, aside from catching a pass the other day, really hasn't done much on the field. But in Madden, in our league, he's done a lot, but not good. He threw six. I count Johnny Manziel's interceptions on one hand. He threw 6 interceptions, and the Saints run away 24-10 over the Browns.
Well, and this disappoints me. Sean McDonald is one of our good owners, and the Browns were kind of like one of our spotlight teams going into the year. And, I mean, the Saints should have been a win that Cleveland picked up. I'm really disappointed to see this. Maybe Cleveland isn't who we thought they were.
Yeah, and the Lions are who we thought they were. They win again, 31-28 over the Panthers. But CJ, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, one of the coolest nicknames. Could be the most dominant player at his position. Who are we fooling? He is the most dominant player at his position in the National Football League. 6 catches, 84 yards. Whoop-de-doo.
Well, and we talked about this last week. You just can't expect 200 yards and 3 touchdowns out of Calvin Johnson every week. And if you don't need it to win, why force it? Lions got their win without Calvin Johnson having a big day, so I'm sure the Lions aren't crying any tears about Calvin Johnson's stat line.
I don't know why you just don't throw it to him every play. All right, last up for week 2, we had the Atlanta Falcons rising up and taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Who they? Well, they the team that scored 17 points, which is less than 28. Then the Atlanta Falcons spread the ball around with Matt Ryan. 203 yards, 2 touchdowns to 6 different receivers. The Falcons and Salty's offense are proving to be pretty efficient, and they win, again, 28-17 over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, Josh, this is not our last game of the week. You conveniently skipped one. But on the topic of this game, I'm expecting higher numbers out of Matt Ryan. But this is impressive from me that Coach Salty doesn't have to win with his spread offense, airing it out like he's known for. He's spreading the ball around. He's got a balanced attack. I hate to say it because I talked big over the summer, but this Atlanta Falcons team might be someone to watch out for.
All right, well, lead us on. What do we got? 1 score left, 2 scores left? What did I miss? Something didn't come out of my printout.
You missed my game, the 49ers and the Bears, the game of the week, opening up the virtual Levi Stadium.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, I know that the real-life version went so well, and you had a great seat to see it live there in person, which I'm sure was an amazing way to kick off the new stadium, watching the Chicago Bears come back and win a game. And Brandon Marshall, gosh, bless it, that guy's amazing. So tell us how the Madden version went, Alan.
The Madden version, thankfully, went a whole lot different. You tell me that Jay Cutler's going to go 9 of 11 passing, and you're probably going to think that he's going to throw for more than 50 yards, which he did not. 49 yards and 2 interceptions passing from Jay Cutler. 24-0. San Francisco, the virtual 49ers, open up the virtual Levi Stadium with a decisive win. I'm very happy that at least one Niners team can open up a stadium the right way.
Well, good deal. Well, congratulations on your win for sure. We know that Earl is a great player with those Chicago Bears, and they really just have some amazing weapons on that team. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our Week 2 scores. Alan, real quick, before we move on, what do we want to do here? Do we want to move on to our next kind of Madden topic, or do we want to take a quick break?
I think we can keep going. I think our listeners want to hear us keep going. There's issues in this league. We can take a break after we discuss the important issues.
Let's discuss the week's issues. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. Then we'll run our sponsor for the evening, and then we'll come back and we'll do Week 3 scores. That sounds great. All right, Alan. Really, boy, you want to talk about at the forefront here. There's been some issues with the EA servers. Big surprise, right? Big surprise on any and all of their games.
Shocking.
Shocking. And we all know that, and it's in the back of our mind going in, but it really always sucks to be on the wrong end of that. And by that, I mean that we're getting a lot of desyncs in the league. Guys are getting linked up. They're playing their games, and without warning, the games are desyncing, and guys, either the game is freezing, which is what I've experienced firsthand, or you're getting kicked out to a boot screen that says, your opponent is left. Or anyway, we're long past guys quitting for being mad at the game. Our league is almost 4 years old now, I think, and we are. We got a good group of owners, and we're long past the guys that just kind of up and quit. So we know that when these things are going on with the league, we know that it's a server side problem, that it's a problem that EA has. So that said, what do you do about it? Well, there's a few different ways to handle it, and I think that Salty has done a good job of kind of lining it out, how to handle this stuff in the league. And the gist of it is this. You handle it amongst yourself. He's always just kind of told owners to figure it out on their own. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you start over from the very beginning? Does that mean that you start over and try to run the score to a similar point, to a similar time? Does that mean that one of you bows out and says, let go ahead, play the CPU? There are quite a few different ways to handle it. You could say neither one of us are going to play, we'll let it sim. So my questions are this, and I think this is a good discussion to have, is that what do you do? And so I'm going to speak from a point of reference, not to make this the Murph show, but I experienced this last night heatedly, not because of anything my opponent did, but because of what happened ultimately in our game. I had a big lead late in the third quarter, 35-7, over the New England Patriots, and we'll get to that later. But the gist of it is this. Never at any point during that game that I feel like I was out of control or not perfectly in control of what was going on in the game. I had 2 sacks from rookie Khalil Mack. I had another 2 interceptions from Tywan Jones. I had another sack from one of my rookie defensive ends. I had a breakaway run with Latavius Murray for like 85 yards and a touchdown. I had a couple of touchdowns to Derek Carrier, my young tight end. Like, things were fully clicking for me. Then the game desynced. He offered for me to play the CPU. Very respectable thing for him to do because clearly I was in control. And he said, look, just go ahead and play the CPU, or do you want to play it again? I elected to play it again because we know what kind of curb stompings have been handed out by the CPU. I've been on the wrong end of one of those in the preseason. I would rather lose to a human who's got me figured out by this point than to go just get destroyed 41-3 by the CPU. So I elected to play the game. In the game, though, I brought for all of a sudden Derek Carr, as efficient as he was in that you mentioned in the week 2 game, he was as efficient in our first game. Then all of a sudden he couldn't hit a pass, and I was erratic with my passing. I couldn't hit it 3 times. I attempted a field goal from around the 40-yard line and didn't make it. I shanked it. Nothing went right. He was able to run the ball on me. He did a good job of it, and I couldn't stop him, even though despite the fact I had a chance to take the lead late and I had the lead early, I couldn't stop him, and Matt Maturo fair and square beat me. So that didn't keep me from punching the couch. It didn't keep me from getting frustrated and freaking out in Madden terms, in perspective. But so what do you do? So what would have been the right thing for him to do there? Did he do the right thing? And do I just accept my fate that I accepted and say, look, we're going to start up despite the fact I had this lead late in the third quarter? And you know what, Murph? Tough.
Well, my take on this, it goes all the way back to my first year in this league, Madden 12, I believe it was. Or Madden 13, and I was still running the Arizona Cardinals, and I played a game against Preston Billingsley and his New York Jets, and in the fourth quarter, late, he had the game fully in control. There's no way I could have come back and won, and we had a disconnect. He offered a fresh restart. I came back. I ended up winning the game, a game that I shouldn't have won, and he never had a complaint about it. It was his offer to just start the game clean. So for that, I feel when that happens in my games, unless it's just blatantly clear that, I'm up 21 with a minute to go in the fourth quarter, or something is just going horrifically wrong, I like to just fresh restart. I don't like playing a game where for the first 2 quarters or whatever, you're trying to just run it up to a specific score. That's just not fun. And that's a half an hour of our time that's being wasted away just trying to get to another score. And as you and I remember, want to say it was a early game Assassin's Tournament, or maybe even before that, we had a desync issue, and we tried to run it back to a particular score, and I was trying to let you score, but my little guys were still making interceptions and stuff. And I just feel it's just easier to just go ahead and replay the game from scratch. Now, where the problem comes in is there are situations, and I've been on both ends of this, where the outcome of the game is clear, and it's time to just, instead of replaying the game from scratch, why should someone put the win that they earned on the line? So typically in the past, we've gone play the computer. And in the past, that was fine. Playing the computer was pretty much a stat padding game as long as you were within the limits. Now, as some of us have seen, in particular Preston Billingsley, ironically enough, the CPU, in order to make our human versus human games balanced, the CPU, when you play against them, are pretty good, apparently. And we've had a couple CPU curb stompings of human opponents, which hasn't been in the past. Now, I do believe that playing the computer should not be an automatic win where you just pad your stats. But in a case like Preston and his game against the Chargers, there's got to be something where he gets the win that he earned. He earned a win that he doesn't have anymore.
Yeah, and I wish there was a way. I wish there was a mechanic in there for a league official or for the commissioner to go in there and to make some kind of a change to. I know that would lend itself to all kinds of shady potential there, but yeah, it sure would be nice if there was something there, because it does it hurts. Again, all within perspective here, but when that thing desynced, it was like all the I just deflated. It was like, oh my gosh, now I gotta go and do this all over again. Matt Maturo's a worthy opponent. It wasn't like I felt like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, we'll just play again. I'll just kick his butt. It wasn't like that because despite the fact that things didn't go his way and I had a healthy lead, it wasn't because he's not a good player. So it was like, you've seen the team and especially when you're talking about a team like the Raiders. I'm not multidimensional. I got a couple things that I can do pretty good, and then after that, if you figure it out, man, I'm stuck. I'm not like the
ankle and wheel route.
No, and I wasn't even doing that. I wasn't even doing that, and it. Thank you for pointing that out. Of course, it's always part of my game plan, but not a ton. What my point is though is that, he couldn't get his passing game going early. But once he kind of figures out where he needs to pick his spots with the Patriots, all of a sudden Julian Edelman and Stephen Ridley, and all of a sudden these guys are starting to get loose, and Gronkowski, and it's like once it kind of clicked for him, that was it. Where I had him guessing early. But after you've seen me for the 7th quarter, well, okay, it starts to make sense. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I wish there was something in there, but there's not, and so. Again, the official stance is it's up to you guys. It's up to you guys how you're going to handle it. I'm hoping that we're going to get the CPU passing accuracy lowered soon because if that would have been in effect, Alan, if that slider change would have been made, I'd have taken the CPU game.
Well, and I agree with you. I'm with you 100% on this, that just even replaying a game, even though I feel that's the best option to take, even replaying a game is still tough. It's you played a quarter or 2 quarters or 3 quarters, and yeah, you may not have finished the game, but that is still time that you spent. And that happened to me the other night as well. And we'll talk about the official score later, but that happened a couple nights when I was playing RJ and the Cardinals. And I know that Justin Tsai was watching on the Twitch feed and a few others. And in the 3rd quarter, it just drops. The 3rd quarter of a great game. It was RJ had a 4-point lead. I had the ball and was driving. Stats were out of control. It was a shootout in that game. And we were just letting it fly. It was a very fun game to play. It was a very fun game to watch. But I can tell you from having playing against him 2 times a season for the past couple iterations, playing RJ is an emotionally draining game. And now I have to do it again. And ultimately the problem lies with EA, and they need to get their servers fixed. But like you said, it's up to the players to figure out what route they want to take, and at least now we know the risks that playing the computer is going to not be a give me anymore. There really are no give me's anymore, it seems. So in my humble opinion, just replay the game, but obviously that's only my take. It's up to each individual owner. Just talk it out, figure it out, and we'll make it work. We've made it work for years now. We'll make it work going forward, but I really hope EA addresses this. They've had bad servers for a while.
Yeah, me too. And, I think ultimately that's it. You just got to be comfortable in the fact that, look, you're just going to have to play it again because that's probably the right thing to do unless you're going to take the CPU game. I've been a part of those games where you mentioned it in our Assassins tournament. I could think of league games in the past. We're playing KMAT where there's been, games have quit and I've pushed him. I said, no, I want the score back. I want the ball back. I want the stats back. I want Darren McFadden to have X amount of yards. And I've pushed him because it's like, no, I already earned all that. I don't want to just dismiss it. But I think at this point now with the game and at this point in the maturity of our league and the health of it, I think that, you just go ahead and just replay the game and just, it is what it is. Alan, one of the things that makes it a big deal to lose out on that victory that you've earned or whatever it is, if you're a stats guy or whatever. One of the things that makes it tough is that we are essentially playing a role-playing game. This is an RPG. Some of us do it with our personalities. Some of us do it with, just investing time into the league. And there's not a lot of difference between Skyrim or Final Fantasy or Madden online football, that you are assuming a role of an owner or a coach, and during your games, you're the play caller, the coordinators, and so it's a unique experience. And I think that's what drives the passion or the emotion when things don't go like maybe they should. And, you know, Salty and I had a conversation earlier this week, and I thought that he made a really good point, is that Madden online football in a league like ours is one of the very, very few games where the game itself is the ultimate culmination of everything that you've worked on prior outside of the game. Now, some of us are more dedicated than others and spend more time on it, and some of us are combing over Madden Daddy and waiver wires and looking at the transactions lists and looking at attributes and trying to find, maybe I could drop this guy and pick up that guy and he's a couple better points here. I'm 100% guilty of this, and I know a lot of you also are. Heck, you and I, Alan, do a freaking radio show about the league. This is as role-playing as you can get. This isn't real. This is all pretend stuff. And so when you invest all that outside of the actual game, that when something doesn't go right in the game, it drives an emotion unlike other games. Now, we have a lot of guys that play other games. We have, you know, Scotty's a notorious Call of Duty player. You know, I know that, you know, you and Sonny are big Skyrim guys. I love my BioShock games and my Batman games and all. Anyways, but, you know, all that said, nothing has driven emotion out of me like Madden. I don't punch my couch when Batman dies in Arkham City. You know what I mean? Or gets knocked out, whatever. But when I throw an interception with Derek Carr, who for the previous 7 quarters hadn't turned the ball over, and now all of a sudden, because of that goofy game mechanic, he throws it completely offline, and I get picked by Chandler Jones or whoever it was, defensive end for the Patriots. Alan, I'm not kidding. I jammed a finger. I was so mad. And nothing generates that kind of. Is it? And I ask you, is it because we spend so much time outside of the actual gameplay that when it doesn't go right in game, we freak out? And I'm going to hit you with one number, and then I'm curious to hear your response. When you put a pencil to it, when you look at a big RPG, it can be hundreds of hours. Final Fantasy, Skyrim's, all that. 100+ hours is nothing, right? You could spend easily 100+ hours in games like that. Alan, when you count up our season and our actual time playing games, I'm not talking about drafting and I'm not talking about player research and all that kind of, I'm talking about in-game, 64 hours for an entire year, for a calendar year in Madden.
Well, everything that you said, at the risk of bad radio, is spot on. And you talked about RPG, and that's exactly the thing. I mean, you mentioned my Elder Scrolls, and you talked about Final Fantasy, and I love, you know, Dragon Age and Mass Effect, and, you know, I'm an RPG fan. I've played Dungeons and Dragons. I've played other tabletops. I've played the video games. You know, and that's what Madden is to me. That's what Madden is to you. That's what Madden is to a lot of us. It's, instead of dressing up in a wizard hat and carrying a staff, we are dressing up with a headset and calling football plays. Our spells are our plays. And you talk about online games, Elder Scrolls Online, EverQuest, Star Wars Galaxies, World of Warcraft, Warhammer Online, those kind of online games, they always have guilds. And WestOne is essentially our Madden Online guild. That's what this is. That's what we are. And going back to the aims of the league, this is what it is for all of us, why it becomes so frustrating. We're trying to have a realistic league. And I know when I'm playing my franchise modes, whether they're online in this league or they're offline with NBA 2K or WWE or whatever they may be, I'm trying to replicate some sort of realistic experience. I'm trying to replicate some kind of particular story or outcome, and it becomes frustrating when you have to redo all that stuff because the things that you earned haven't don't count anymore. It's to me, it's all part of a bigger story. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but only halfway a joke. This kind of stuff that we're doing right now, having our, as you called it, pretend radio show and having our pretend online franchise mode and all that stuff, that's half the reason why I started studying theater in college. I want these to be the stories that we tell in football world. And when those stories have been told and then it's, oh, nope, that didn't happen, you have to replay it. It's not only something that you've earned, something that you've already accomplished, and something that you put time into that's now being undone, and you just have to do it again. And I know you know firsthand about having to do something again in a video game, but it takes away from that story that you were just telling, that you were in the process of. You had Derek Carr, who was going for 2 straight games of his rookie campaign that was looking like a Rookie of the Year candidate, and now all of a sudden he's just after 2 games, a mediocre and whatever quarterback. And it's the same thing with my game against Arizona a couple nights ago. All those stats that we put up, it was, okay, the Arizona Cardinals and the 49ers are going to be a high-flying rivalry this year that are just going to chuck the ball all over the place. And then that was taken away from us. Now it's something completely different now. And it's frustrating. Everything you said is right, and I agree with it all 100%.
Well, and I love that point. That's an excellent point, that we're writing a story, that we were writing. I was writing the Derek Carr story. It's not to over-dramatize it, guys. And again, it's all in perspective, but it's true. I mean, I was, man, or Latavius Murray I'm backed up inside my own 5-yard line, and I never run a spread offense. I ran a spread, and I just did a halfback dive, and he got to the second level, and boom, he was gone, Alan. He trucked the guy. He trucked the safety coming up and took off for, I said 85 earlier. It was like 95 yards or whatever it was, took off for a touchdown. And then I was like, yeah, that's awesome. That's the guy that's going to replace Darren McFadden. Those are stats. Those are development points and experience that he's going to get. I was jacked up. I'm like, this is awesome. Again, Khalil Mack with his 2 sacks. I'm like, this is awesome. You're right. That's what it is that you find yourself so in the moment, and maybe we're not all like this. I don't know, but I certainly am. You're in the moment, and you're pleased and you're excited for what you've been able to accomplish, and then all of a sudden, rip, it's gone. Done.
Exactly. And I've had the same storylines that I've come up with myself, whether it's this league or past franchise modes that I've done. I once had a great storyline in one of my own personal franchises where a guy came out of college as a running back, was drafted by the Lions. He was, as like a top 3 pick, was supposed to be the heir apparent to Barry Sanders to take the throne, had an injury-filled career, couldn't even play a full season worth of games in 3 years. The Lions cut him. I picked him up because I wanted him originally in the draft, and all of a sudden I made him a 2-time rushing champion. And it was kind of a cool little story in my own personal franchise mode that this guy who was supposed to have an amazing career was devastated by injuries, got picked up by another team for a league minimum, and revitalized his career playing for the league minimum. And I thought that was a cool little story to have in my franchise mode. And you just talked about Derek Carr and your running backs and your heir apparent to Darren McFadden. And some of our guys don't get into it as much as you and I do, but a lot of them do. We have guys like K-Matt and Josh Norman calling the show almost every week. We have the suspensions and the state of the league from the commissioner and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people who do get into this kind of stuff in the league, and you don't need to look no further than the Facebook page.
That's a great point. All right, Alan, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in 90 seconds. Let me see if I can get my thing up here. All right, let's see if I can turn this on. Why doesn't this work? I'm telling you. How about now? Oh, it didn't work again. Maybe I could try this again. Hold on. Hang in there hang in. Hell, this is riveting. Yeah, way to go.
And
Murph.
now Josh is desyncing. You just ripped the story that we just told about this wonderful show that we were putting on. It's been ripped away from us. So now I'm going to go punch a couch.
I can't get the overlay to work. Anyways, whatever. Go ahead. Go punch your couch. We'll be back in 90 seconds. Gosh, I did this. This is amazing radio.
Find an exciting new way to prepare.
Oh my gosh! All right, here we go. Back in 90 seconds.
And now, a word from our sponsor. How many times has this happened to you? You have a bass and you're trying to find an exciting new way to prepare it for the dinner table. You could scale the bass, remove the bass, tail, head, and bones, and serve the fish as you would any other fish dinner. But why bother now that you can use Ronco's amazing new kitchen tool, the Super Bass-O-Matic 13? Yes, fish eaters, the days of troublesome scaling, cutting, gutting are over because Super Bass-O-Matic 13 is the tool that lets you use the bass with no fish, no waste, and without scaling, cutting, or gutting. Here's how it works. Catch a bass, remove the hook, and drop the bass. That's right, the whole bass into the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Now, just adjust the control dial so that the bass is blended just the way you like it. Yes, it's that simple.
Wow, that's terrific bass.
We've got bass here. Fast, easy, ready to port. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 comes with 10 interchangeable rotors, a 9-month guarantee, and a booklet. 1,001 ways to harness your bass. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 works great on sunfish, perch, sole, and other small aquatic creatures. That's Super Bass-O-Matic 13. It's clean, simple, and after 5 or 10 fish, it gets to be quite a rush. Super Bass-O-Matic 13. You're never going to have to scale, cut, or gut again. Just send $49.95 to the Sports Dagos, care of the Dago Dungeon, Oakland, California.
All right, welcome back to WestOne Radio. Alan, are you still there?
I'm here. Are you here?
Okay, good. Yeah, I just made it back with about 5 seconds. Okay, Alan, let's talk about
someone to run the show.
Yeah, you know what? The show needs a producer is what needs to happen. I'm telling you. If you could see how many windows I have open right now and how much stuff is going on, you might be impressed. Of course, no one else will be. Anyways, here we go. Let's get into the Week 3 scores, Alan. We have the aforementioned Chicago Bears took on the also aforementioned New York Jets. Geno Smith continues his tirade. Goes 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception as the Jets beat the Bears 17-14.
And you know what? This is real disappointing to me. Earl was kind of my sleeper pick in the NFC North, and 0-3 to start the year. That's a rough one. I hope to see a quick turnaround out of this team.
All right, on deck next is the Buffalo Bills and Justin Tsai taking on the San Diego Superchargers 34-16. E.J. Manuel, 377 yards. Threw a couple of picks, but 2 touchdowns to go along with it. 34-16 over the Chargers.
Well, at least the Buffalo defense let up a little bit and let the Chargers score. Maybe the mercy rule was in effect or something there. But who would have thunk that E.J. Manuel would be going off for almost 400 yards? I guess Justin took my comments before the season started to heart.
Well, you know who didn't go off for 400 yards? Tony Romo. Big surprise. Hey, Mr. Lanning, you, sir, you followed the memo. We are a sim league, and we thank you for keeping to the rules and throwing 6 freaking interceptions with Tony Romo. Golly, that's tough. St. Louis Rams, I'm telling you, they're a contender. They're 2-1. They win 52-24 over the Cowboys. Alan, you're in trouble in your division.
Well, there's 3 teams sitting at 2-1 in my division, so this is not a good score for me, and I'm feeling a little bit worse about my loss to Lanning now because I'm the only team that's lost to him so far.
Next up, we had the Saints taking on the Vikings. Alan, these 2 teams combined for 8 interceptions. Drew Brees, 5. Matt Castle, 3. The Saints hang on to win in a close one. And surprisingly, after throwing 5 picks, they win 10-6 over the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I'm surprised to see New Orleans get 2 wins in a row against teams that they probably had no business beating. I'm shocked about Terry over there. Only 37 yards with Adrian Peterson. Yeah, I guess you might as well bench him because he's not doing anything anyways.
We've talked a lot tonight about the strength of the CPU, and I don't believe Steve has got his game yet, the owner that's going to take over the Tennessee Titans. So I'm assuming that Domino took on the CPU Titans. Allen beat him. Jeremy Hill had 2 touchdowns, and he beat him in a close one, 20-17.
Well, Domino's a good owner. He's been around for a while, and it's good to see him get a CPU victory. This CPU needs to get put in check. We can't have the computer over here winning divisions for us. That's the last thing we need is a computer on the Super Bowl banner for West One.
I love it. All right, the Browns and the Ravens got together in a divisional tilt. Johnny Manziel, he's finally starting to earn Johnny football a little bit. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he certainly took a step in the right direction as he throws for 345 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks to go along with it, but that's a lot better than the 6 he threw in the last game. Joe Flacco, in the meantime, goes for 229, 3 touchdowns and a couple interceptions. This game apparently went back and forth, but the Browns hang on to win and get their first one of the year and beat the Ravens 35-32.
Well, I think it's pretty telling about what's going on in Cleveland when 3 interceptions is moving in the right direction for Johnny Manziel. Good job finally picking up a win, Sean, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing out of Cleveland this year, not one bit.
Man, this is one of the better matchups in our league. These guys are good friends in real life. They are now division rivals, and this is going to be fun watching these guys unfold their rivalry throughout the next few seasons. And I'm talking about the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. You know, the Green Bay has pretty much owned this rivalry over, gosh, I don't know how many years. You probably got to go back to the 50s. Or 60s when Alex Karras and all them guys were, I don't know. Did they win championships even back then? I don't know. But it's been a long, long time since the Lions were on the right end of this rivalry. Well, guess what? They are so far in our league as Josh Norman, my Super Bowl pick. Norman, I'm this close, dude, to getting off the bandwagon. It's ridiculous. You can't lose 3 in a row. You can't start the season 0-3 and still be a Super Bowl favorite. You lost to Ostie and the Lions 35-52. Ostie hung on you, and Allen, he hurt us. Ostie hurt us loud and clear. We've been mildly critical of his use of Calvin Johnson. Maybe you mildly, me maybe a little more vocal about it. Anyways, he responded, and this week he throws to Calvin Johnson 9 times. Well, I don't know, who knows how many times he threw to him. He caught the ball 9 times for 192 yards, 8 yards shy of triple on Norman for 4 touchdowns. Boom!
500 yards from Matt Stafford, and you finally got your stat line from Calvin Johnson that you've been wanting to see. If this was against anyone other than Josh Norman's sorry defense, I'd probably be a little more impressed.
Next up, the sad sack game of the week. The Raiders took on the New England Patriots after winning once. Lost in the second match. And I said it a little bit earlier, props to Maturo. I mean, he made the adjustments, and he had my number. You know, didn't do it with just one guy. He did it with 2. As Shane Vereen and Stephen Ridley combine for 106 yards on the ground and win 35-21 over the Raiders.
Well, this game is a hard one to analyze because we know the story behind this game, but we got to go off the official stat line, and that is a 35-21 victory. But take a little solace in the fact that it took 2 tries for you to get your first loss of the season.
Well, thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Yeah, really, considering my team to be 2-1 at this point, I got a game against Chris and the Dolphins coming up next. You know, I got a chance to be 3-1 going into the bye week. You know, that's a lot for a team that's got, you know, a 72 overall rating. All right. Boy, just these games that feature our favorite teams, Alan, just haven't slowed down at all. And the Denver Broncos, oh, geez. Man, when I go to sleep at night, I just dream about the Denver Broncos. And I know you do about the Seattle Seahawks. Alan, you got your 12th man jersey, I'm sure, somewhere. Anyways, those Broncos and what was ended up being a pretty good game after the Seahawks in real life looked like they were just going to take it to Pepe and the Donkeys. Peyton drove them down after, of course, throwing a pick to Cam Chancellor that cost him the game because he's not a big game quarterback. And if you think he's not and say he's not, you're blind and you don't watch enough football. You're just not paying attention. He just doesn't do good in the big games. Deal with it. All right. Ooh, that was a little mustard on that one. Okay, the Seahawks took on the Broncos, beat them handily, 34-18. This was pretty cool. I focus a lot typically on our rundown on offensive statistics, but the Seahawks, 2 sacks from Cliff Averill and 2 sacks from Michael Bennett. Combined for 4, that's pretty impressive.
With one from Bruce Irvin and one from Malcolm Smith as well. And to follow up on your point, not only do I have my 12th man jersey, but it is signed, personalized signed by Richard Sherman. You know, he's my favorite player of all time also. Chris, what's going on in Denver? You were one of my picks in the AFC, and now you've dropped 2 straight, and you had to drop one to Seattle. Really? I mean, I can't count on the computer to beat Seattle every week. I need a little help, buddy.
I tried to tell you, you know, Washburn is a good player, but I don't. You could probably count his postseason trips on one finger, and I won't show you what finger. That took some restraint there because that would have been pretty funny. But I'm not going to show you that finger on to be recorded on YouTube for the rest of eternity. All right, the Falcons took on the Buccaneers. This was another desync game. These guys restarted it. Hi, K-Matt. I see you there, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Falcons join it. See, all it takes is one picture of K-Matt's bare shoulder, and I'm a mess. All right, the Falcons.
Well, maybe you should stop being so attracted to a married man.
The Falcons took on the Buccaneers in a divisional game that featured a desync. They started fresh, but they were the score ended up being very similar to what the first score was, and the Falcons win 28-10 over the Buccaneers. Jaquiz Rogers, with the departure of Steven Jackson, Salty relying on his Oregon State buddy, and he runs for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Good on you there, Salty.
Well, I know this is what Salty's been wanting to hear from me all summer long, but I'm scared of this Atlanta Falcons team. Has Matt Ryan even thrown a pick yet? He's not throwing for huge passing yards numbers, but it's efficient. He's throwing for touchdowns, and he's not turning the ball over, and he's getting wins. This Falcons team is, maybe I didn't give them enough credit either. They're a scary team right now.
Well, speaking of K-Matt, the next game up on our list is the Indianapolis Colts, led by that freaking goober, chin-bearded wonder they have back there at quarterback. They took on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and freaking goober threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. Good for you, K-Matt. Gosh, what a good game. He did throw 1 pick, but still, 330 yards and 4 touchdowns is no joke, and he beats the Jacksonville Jaguars 42-23.
And had another 100 yards from Tyler Bray, and had another 100 yards from Trent Richardson, and another 2 touchdowns from Trent Richardson. I'm guessing since this was the Jaguars, this was another computer game. So good on you, K-Matt, for hanging it on the computer. Some of our other owners haven't done that, and what an offensive showing from this team. I'm impressed with that rushing stat line from Trent Richardson. We talked last week about K-Matt's running game, and he came to play this week.
You know, that's a good point, and I'm sure that's why the score was 42-23, because that's the point total That's our cap in a CPU game. So good point. And from what we're running down here, looks to me like the CPU, even despite maybe some of the changes that are coming, it certainly looks to be beatable. So good for you, K-Matt. And yeah, someone tell him this is a sim league. Trent Richardson's stat line should look like 6 for 21, right? Maybe with a fumble in there. All right, the 49ers, Alan. You talked about your game earlier with R.J. Ramondo. Always props to R.J. because he is a diehard Oakland Raider fan, lives in the Bay Area, not too far from you. He runs the Arizona Cardinals in our league. And after your desync, you guys started back up again. And he was on the wrong side of 38-21 as Colin Kaepernick, 70 yards rushing and a touchdown. But I'm sure they were all for broken plays, right? Yeah, you never ran no intentional runs out of your quarterback.
Oh, I would never run the read option. What are we talking about here? But I'll take this win any day of the week. I believe the game was a lot closer than the score indicates. But if you told me going into this game that Michael Crabtree would not have a single catch, I would assume that the score would be reversed and maybe even a lot worse. So props to Bruce Miller and Quentin Patton for stepping it up and leading my reception game. Two guys that I actually have personal connections to, so that's a little bit nice too.
Michael Crabtree doesn't show up? Sim League. All right, the Texans took on the New York Football Giants. And hey, speaking of Sim League, Eli Manning, 4 picks. Attaboy, Caruso. Oosh. As they go down to the Houston Texans. Houston Texans have a pretty good owner this year. They have in the past also, but that's a tough team that's a tough hustle there with the Houston Texans, man. I know you got Arian Foster and you got Andre Johnson, but man, when you look at top to bottom, that's a very challenged football team. But anyways, the Houston Texans moved to 2-1 and beat Eli, Caruso, the Giants, the state of New York, Frank Sinatra, everybody, 17-10.
Well, I'm still kind of reeling off your little parting shot on Crabtree there. But does Texas have Arian Foster right now, or is he on the injured list because he does not have a carry? So
you're right. It's Ben Tate. No,
their leading rusher was Justin Forsett, 21 attempts for 91 yards. So good on the Texans for getting a win without one of their most dynamic playmakers. Good on Eli Manning for being Eli Manning and throwing 4 picks. I always love that stat line.
Yeah, because we know you love you some Eli. All right, let's see. Last up, because we had 2 games that went to Sim. They didn't get played, so I'll try to bring those up on the box here, Alan, while we get your rundown of the Steelers-Panthers. Alan, the one that jumped out at me, the stat line that jumped out at me was, again, Brian Hoyer, recently acquired from the Cleveland Browns, while Johnny Manziel goes, what could be Johnny Manziel, Brian Hoyer goes, alternate reality Brian Hoyer. 383 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks to go along with it, but the Steelers win a close one, 28-27, and I'll look up the last 2 scores.
Well, I'm curious to see what's going on in Pittsburgh here, because as far as I know, Ben Roethlisberger isn't hurt. So for Brian Hoyer to take the starting job there, not only to take the starting job, but impress in doing so, that's testament to what's happening over there in Pittsburgh. So good on Brian Hoyer for revitalizing his career. Is that how we want to go ahead and call it?
Yeah, because he's so old, I guess. I don't know.
Or actually making a career for himself. There's that too.
There you go. Actually making a career. Boy, he had a rough outing this last time. Gosh, and so did Kirk Cousins, man. Speaking of guys that it seemed like the entire world was on the Kirk Cousins bandwagon 2 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden, man, people in Washington can't wait for RG3's ankle to get healthy, huh?
Well, they'll be waiting for a long time. I mean, it is RG3.
All right. Let's see. We're looking for the Redskins-Eagles score.
Well, I actually have that if you're still looking for it. It finally popped up for me. We got the Redskins 24, Philadelphia Eagles 17. Speaking of Robert Griffin, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, 14 of 17 passing. Nick Foles, 63 yards and 4 interceptions, no touchdowns on the day, only 8 of 19. That's Sim, so we don't want to waste time breaking that down, what the computer did behind closed doors. But, wow, Nick Foles, I guess Madden doesn't think he's the real deal.
All right, in our last game that was also a sim, gosh, Scotty's so good, he doesn't even have to be there to win. And the Chiefs walk away from the Miami Dolphins 25-6. I don't have any stat lines to look at, but that's a pretty decisive win for the Chiefs and a crap win for a fellow division rival.
Well, I have the stat lines here, and I have Alex Smith going Alex Smith, 1 touchdown and 127 yards. That's about as Alex Smith as it gets. And Ryan Tannehill being Ryan Tannehill with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. That's about as Ryan Tannehill as it gets. So I don't really, the standout that I see is Jamal Charles, 130 yards on 20 attempts and a touchdown, which is pretty Jamal Charles. So this looks like a pretty run-of-the-mill game, no surprises, and probably a very predictable and sim outcome. Way to go, Sim Cotty, getting a 2-game head start before he even joins the team.
Yeah, I know, right? Could we make it any easier for this guy who's already probably one of the most talented Madden players in our league? And I guess we'll welcome him back. I don't know. I'd welcome him back a lot more. I'd welcome him back a lot more if he wasn't in my division. All right, well, Alan, that brings us to the end of our Week 3 scores. And let's see, we're still good on time, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our next segment here on WestOne Radio, which is Auden's Audibles.
I've had a lot of people ask what Omaha means. It's Omaha is it's a run play, but it could be a pass play or a play action pass, depending on the wind, which way we're going, quarter, and the jerseys that we're wearing. So it varies, really play to play. That's there's your answer to that.
Short ox! Short ox! Short ox! Richmond, Florida, Buffalo! 37 double! Easy now, Rambo! 59! Get on the ball! Get on the ball! Louisville Soul Train! Louisville Soul Train! It's purple! Purple! Go to Raiders!
We got our Razor with 59 action. That's what you two guys on these two, basically. 59 Razor.
59 Razor! Black 59 Razor! 39 7! Ready? Down! Put!
Just snap the damn ball.
Josh, you've hyped up the NFC North for weeks as the powerhouse division in West 1. I've gone along with it a bit myself. We got high-profile coaches and owners like Terry Dennett, USC Weezy, the never-shy Josh Norman. Of course, we got Osty. Many analysts in West 1 bought hook, line, and sinker into the hype of the black and blue division this year. One of my favorites to put up a fight in the division, the Chicago Bears, have a combined 17 points over 3 games, while the barking Chihuahua himself remains winless in Green Bay. Even yours truly last week proclaimed a 3-way battle for first place in this division. However, with 3 of the 4 teams combining for a 2-7 record, with the 2 wins coming against other winless teams, including one inside the division, it looks like the 3-way battle for first place will be a 3-way battle for the first pick instead. I see the real power shifting to the AFC West, a division that already has 2 teams sitting at the top with 2-1 records, and that's before the return of the 2-time Super Bowl champion, Sim Cotty himself, to West 1, taking the vacant job in Kansas City and making the Chiefs instant contenders. There's no way I see Chris Washburn and his high-powered Denver Broncos staying down for long. Sorry, Josh, I might have to revoke my pick to see the Raiders in the postseason this year. The competition in this division is just too strong. Still in my top 5 this week are the undefeated Buffalo Bills and Atlanta Falcons. But this week I also want to recognize William Alexander and the St. Louis Rams bouncing back from their Week 1 loss with 2 definitive wins, showcasing that Super Bowl pedigree from another 2-time champion. K-Matt and his Indianapolis Colts make their debut in my top 5, along with 2 strong, convincing wins following another disappointing Week 1 loss. And while one of those wins was against the computer losses are why Preston Seahawks are losing a spot on this week's list. And instead, I'm giving it to Sim Cotty as he gets ready to make his Madden 15 debut. The return of Sim Cotty is an instant game changer and worthy of note. Speaking from experience, a game against Sim Cotty is harder than Josh Norman watching Taniqua show off her gunshot wounds at an 8 Mile strip club on a Tuesday afternoon.
It's a PG-13 show. Or now, it was a PG show. Oh, man. Well, leave it to Alan to bring the heat on Autumn's Audibles.
Well, that's what we do here. That's why I have my own theme music and everything.
Yes, you do. Good job on bringing us the curveballs, the audibles here in the WestOne Madden League. Next up, Alan, we have the divisional spotlight. Last week we looked at the NFC North. This week we're going to be switching conferences and looking at the AFC North. So of course we're talking about the Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers. Boy, there's some heated rivalries, although they may a lot of them be one-sided in real life. We got the potential for some really good matchups going in this year in West 1. So, Alan, let's go ahead and kick it off. It's funny we're playing the NFL on Fox, which is the NFC, and I should have picked the CBS theme maybe. So I gotta figure that out. So again, if this show had a producer, somebody would figure out that kind of stuff. You play the Fox theme when you do the NFC teams. You do the CBS theme when you do the AFC teams. Come on, Murph.
Well, we talk about this. We talk about what we're going to do on the show for a long time before the show goes live, and we talk about these things. But instead of thinking like, hey, maybe I can pull the CBS theme out, you're just like, no, Fox Sports, woo! And I.
And it's a good theme. Frankly, it's better than the CBS theme. But anyway.
Well, I agree with you on that. I think Fox has much better production values for their sports than CBS does.
Well, and you're biased because you're an NFC guy. But, you know what? I would like to. I would like to use the old Monday Night Football music, but that doesn't make sense because that was one game, and we're talking about a whole division. Anyways, we digress. Let's jump in to the divisional spotlight, and let's talk about the AFC North. I mentioned the Cleveland Browns. All right. And when you talk about the Cleveland Browns, it's going to start and stop with their quarterback. Because they traded away Brian Hoyer, and so they are clearly going to rely on Johnny Manziel and his talents. And Alan, I'm looking at his profile here on Madden Daddy, and according to Madden Daddy, Johnny Manziel is already a 97 overall quarterback. 97. He has 82 speed, 91 acceleration, 93 agility. So he's clearly has escapability, or if you just want to take off and go ahead and run him at any time, go for it. To go along with that, his ball carrier vision is 95, and he's got a 93 juke move. He's a quarterback, and we haven't even talked about his passing yet. His short accuracy, Alan, is, can this be right? It's 99. His middle is 99. His deep is 93, and his throw on the run is 91. Is this confidence here that's built that? Can these numbers possibly be right? I got to pull it up on the box.
Well, if it's confidence, then the confidence rating is broken. I don't see how this guy could be any kind of confident with 13 interceptions through 3 games, although it is Johnny Manziel we're talking about. Maybe this guy is never short of confidence. But I think that someone has been hitting the experience bar. Johnny Manziel does have star development, so he's going to get quicker experience. And with everything that you just listed off, that makes it even more disappointing. I know I've talked about all summer that ratings don't matter. It's the guy on the sticks. Well, you got a 97 overall quarterback, and you have 13 picks and only 7 touchdowns. I mean, that's great. You're throwing for almost 400 yards a game, but that means nothing when after every 100 yards you're turning the ball over and not getting it into the end zone. Something's got to happen here in Cleveland. Maybe the problem isn't Johnny football.
Well, it's clearly not, because, and I'm getting a text through here that the preseason XP is why Johnny has hit those numbers. And Alan, I'm looking at it. I'm looking on the box here, and it's true. He's got 90 throw power, 99 short, 99 middle, 99 deep, and a 91 throw on the run. Sheesh.
Then what's going on here? You got Josh Gordon at wide receiver. You know, he's a premier talent, and I guess you could say he's been utilized. He's got 320 yards catching through 3 games and 3 touchdowns. But maybe the problem is Johnny football is getting a little too cocky, and the coaching staff is getting a little too cocky in him. Because let's look at this. This is what stands out to me: the rushing yards. Their leading rusher through 3 games has 14 attempts and 77 yards. Come on, really? That's a game's worth of stats in 3 games. You got Ben Tate, who has the most carries with 19. 19 carries is the most touches a running back has gotten, and 61 yards. Maybe you try running the ball a little bit instead of just chucking it all over the field. Have a balanced game attack. That's what wins games in real life. It's what wins games in Madden.
Well, you're absolutely right. And you know, Alan, this has been pretty eye-opening to me. I didn't realize. I mean, we knew what we were going to do in the rundown here, but you know, I didn't check the stats before the attributes of the player before we dove into it, and I'm a little taken aback, frankly. You know, I know that Johnny had some big games in the preseason, but still, to have him in the high 90s overall and have him maxed out in 2 of his passing accuracies going into the 4th week of the season, of season 1, I got to say, man, that's a little disturbing to me. You know, I'm not going to call out Shizani or anything because he's playing within the rules here, but that's not a glitch, but that's an advantage of a game mechanic there somewhere. Because I mean, that's ridiculous. 99s as a rookie. This is a guy who hasn't taken a snap at quarterback in the NFL, and he's already got 99s.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. You have Johnny Manziel, who I just said was a superstar development. That means he's going to get the points quicker. Now we see that Johnny Manziel already has 1,000 yards throwing in 3 games. Johnny Manziel's arm is obviously the focus of this offense, and we know how the experience works in Madden. I actually haven't done any development on my team in this year's game yet. I usually kind of save the points and kind of go in sporadically every few weeks, so I haven't seen how many points I've gotten up or how quick it does. But I do know a superstar player that when you start chucking in those on-field goals, that experience starts coming in quick, especially when you have a superstar rating. And we know that the accuracy is a lot easier to pump up than, say, throw power or running speed or something. I know that when the first year that we had the development in Madden, I had a quarterback who had a 98 throw power, and by week 8 of my first season with him, I had bumped up all of his accuracies to, you know, high 80s, 90s and stuff. So I know how quick it can be. I'm not going to call out Shazani Mack for any foul play. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that this is legit. It might be a little overpowered and something EA needs to look into, but I haven't seen anything firsthand, so I don't know, but I'm not going to call shenanigans on that.
No, and I don't think so. And I don't think there was anything, nothing shady about it. It's just, it's just frankly alarming that he can be that high already as a rookie. All right, let's move on to our next team in that division. We're going to talk about Domino and the Cincinnati Bengals. Domino's been a longtime owner in our league. Frankly, he's one of my favorites, man. He's one of the funniest. When Domino is on his game and cracking jokes, I'm telling you, there can be nobody funnier and more entertaining than Domino. He also lives in Cincinnati. He is a diehard Bengals fan, diehard Reds fan, and we love to see those kind of guys get matched up with their favorite teams. And boy, this year, Alan, he's got a good one. Some of the analysts are calling the Cincinnati Bengals the best team in the AFC this year. They have certainly done nothing to refute that at this point, and it's reflective in their Madden game. When you start looking at guys like Jermaine Gresham, Tyler Eifert at tight end, obviously A.J. Green when it comes to wide receivers. Then we look at Dalton, who doesn't have a ton of throw power, but is accurate enough. And when you got guys that can go up and get the football, you really don't need to be. I love his defense. Margus Hunt is a Madden darling. When you look at his block shed, when you look at his speed, there is a lot of good players, offensive and defensive, for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think, frankly, that so far, I'm going to say that, and we'll get to predictions in a minute. I'm going to save that. But I think Tim Domino is set up better than he has ever been with his Cincinnati Bengals in our Madden League.
I just want to know where it's all coming from, because he's had a good year so far. He's 2-1. He's in first place. Andy Dalton only has 2 touchdowns. And then you have the touchdown leader, Jeremy Hill, 4 touchdowns, has a 2.8 rushing average. Like, where's this offense coming from? Just looking at the stat line, I don't see any overwhelming stats here. A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert have pretty solid stat lines for where we're at in the season. 207 yards for A.J. Green, 315 for Eifert. I'm surprised that we have a team that's having this much success with this little offensive output. It seems like it's all going through 2 guys, and even they're not doing all that much that stands out. So, I guess that's, the proof in the pudding that stat lines don't win games. But I question if it can hold up with such little output.
All right, next on our list in the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens have, really since they won the Super Bowl, have been a challenged Madden team because they are short on cash. They gave Joe Flacco one of the biggest NFL contracts in history, and it's really handcuffed them as far as their ability to maneuver through free agency, and it's been tough with the Ravens. But so far, the way that Marquise is running with the Ravens, I think he's off to a good start. Granted, he's 1-2 to start the season, but he's got $16 million free in salary cap that will only continue to get better for him as he progresses, and he's built a pretty good football team. They've always had a really good offensive line. Then you look at Joe Flacco, quarterback. He's a high throw power, low 80s accuracies kind of guy, very serviceable in Madden terms, backed up by Tyrod Taylor. And then you get to the rest of the offense, and this is where we talked about what Steven Jackson was able to do earlier in the season already, running off for almost 200 yards in a game. So he's got Steven Jackson and Bernard Pierce running the football. So, Pierce is kind of he's not a ton faster, a little bit faster, but the, quote, more elusive guy. But then you talk about Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, Plaxico Burress, and Jacoby Jones, even Santana Moss. This could be one of the better wide receiving cores in our league, after maybe the Chicago Bears and a couple of others. You could throw the Donkeys in there. But when you look at that, Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, Plaxico Burress, Jacoby Jones, and Santana Moss, and then add in Dennis Pitta and Owen Daniels, there is no shortage of targets for Joe Flacco. We already know what the defense is like for the Baltimore Ravens, although they are in a turnover period. And so, you got some young guys like C.J. Mosley and more experienced guys like Suggs and Ladarius Webb and Jimmy Smith. But I think with those offensive weapons, The Ravens have the potential to be a postseason team to me.
Well, we don't need to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and their Super Bowl win. That never happened in my mind. But you mentioned all of those. You mentioned all of those targets: Torrey Smith, Steve Smith, Dennis Pitta, Jacoby Jones, Santana Moss, and Flacco's using them. We got Torrey Smith, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Steve Smith, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dennis Pitta, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. Going down that same list in the same order, 12, 14, and 11 targets. This ball's being spread around. And let's talk about Joe Flacco and that contract that's, hampering the rest of the team and their ability to go out and sign players. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. We got 8 to 3 ratio here. So Flacco's spreading the ball around. He's efficient with it. 313 yards, 261 yards, 229 yards. He's explosive with it too. This is the kind of game when I'm looking at stat lines that didn't impress me in Cincinnati, these are stat lines that impress me. The Ravens are a little bit down in that division right now at 1-2, but if this is what we're going to see from Baltimore going forward, this team's not going to stay with a losing record for very long.
All right, we're going to round out our divisional spotlight with a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is a team that's a little bit close to our hearts. I don't like them, being a Raider fan. You do, but we have a connection to them because it is our father's favorite football team. And, there's, I don't know, whatever, Dad, come on. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have been one of the better Madden teams over really a long period of time. When you look at them now, though, they are aging out. And I know they are in real life, too. I don't know if you saw Ike Taylor the other night break his arm, and, man, that was just a tough hit. He took a helmet right on the forearm, and it busted his arm, and that was tough to see because I like Ike Taylor. He's a good dude. I like his analysis, and I like him on the in the interview shows and stuff. So that was tough to see. But the question was, is that his career? Is he done? Because he's, let's see, Ike Taylor is 34 years old. I mean, he's getting up there. And when you look at the Steelers, a lot of them are. And when we look at the line, I swear, it seems like the Steelers would have built an offensive line by now. Because how long has Ben Roethlisberger been extending plays? He did it again the other night. It's like they never have a good line. You would think that they would have finally built a line for this guy after all these years. Because after Marquise Pouncey, that's it. I mean, when you look at the overalls and you look at the impacts and the pass blocks on here, there's nobody. Maybe Ramon Foster. Maybe I'll give you that. But Marquise Pouncey is it for them. And so you got Ben, out there running for his life, or not running for his life, but extending plays for his life. But he's not the focus of the offense back there because, of course, they have Brian Hoyer. Ben Roethlisberger is now 32 years old, and in Madden terms, he's going to start aging out like the rest of the team. So Kevin Kolb is also there, Landry Jones, but Brian Hoyer clearly is going to be the guy. I do like, from a youth perspective, I do like Le'Veon Bell. I got him on my fantasy team, one of them, and I do like the way he runs the football. He reminds me, Alan, of Marcus Allen in the fact that he's one of those kind of runners that before he gets into his cuts, he kind of does a little high step, like he gets real light on his feet and then boom, he goes somewhere. Kind of like Marcus did, almost like he's setting you up just to go. And it's funny because it almost looks like he's toying with the defender, but he's really not. He's really just setting him up, and he's just because he's got that explosive lateral movement. And he's a tall, lanky guy like Marcus was, and at 6'1", and so I like that. I like Le'Veon Bell, and I like him in Madden as well. But then, after that on offense, Heath Miller, 31 years old. Again, we're talking about guys in their 30s. And then, the younger guys, Darius Hayward-Bay, not real exciting. Yeah, he's fast, but that's about it. Then when we get to the defense, that's where the age is really starting to kick in. We talked about Ike Taylor. Champ Bailey is 36. Will Allen is 32. Polamalu is 33. This is a team that's just frankly just aging out, and it's I applaud Tyler's willingness to get away from Roethlisberger because that's an easy thing to fall on. But instead, he's working on Brian Hoyer. That's going to be his guy, and he's going to let Ben go by the wayside, freeing up money to start replenishing this football team. Because right now he's 2-1, and he's got a positive record, but he's got a tough road ahead of him. And by letting Roethlisberger probably go, that's going to free up a lot of money for him to start rebuilding this football team that has a chance to be good. But really, it's going to take a couple seasons to build up a consistent winner here.
Well, and if you can do with Brian Hoyer what you're doing, why pay the money to Roethlisberger? This is by far the surprise of the season to me. We've already had some surprises in the early years, but to plug in Brian Hoyer, of all people, this isn't even like Ryan Mallett that we're talking about, who is like Madden gold with his throw power. It's Brian Hoyer, who has 970 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Like, this guy is, what is he, the top quarterback in WestOne right now? It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on over in Pittsburgh with Brian Hoyer. And you mentioned Le'Veon Bell earlier. Not a great average at only 3.9 a carry, but he still got 227 yards and 2 touchdowns from him, so they're utilizing the run game. A balanced passing attack. You got Brian Hoyer, and he's not focusing on one guy. 230 yards, 226, 210, 144 for their top 4 receivers. 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 16, 15, 12, and 10 receptions. So, again, we're talking about another balanced attack in the AFC North that's the surprise for me. The Steelers are a team that for this year's Madden and last year's Madden both are a team that I came close to running. Instead of my 49ers, they're my number 2 team on my list every year. And Salty and I had conversations about me running the Steelers team for the past 2 years. And, I mean, I'm glad I got my Niners. But if I had been running the Steelers, or if I do get them in the future, there's no way I would think of benching Ben Roethlisberger, especially for Brian Hoyer. So it's a risk that has paid off. So good job in Pittsburgh for turning Brian Hoyer into a star.
Yeah, nothing with Brian Hoyer dazzles either. That's the thing, is that when you look at the throw power and the accurate, there's not like there's a bunch of, it's not Johnny Manziel 90s jumping out at you all over the place. So okay, well let's go ahead and get down to who we think are our favorites in the AFC North. I don't think the Browns have the staying power. Starting off with that, if you have that kind of talent at the quarterback position and yet throw the amount of interceptions that you do, either one of two things is going on. Either, well, I'm not going to call out Shazam. I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to say he's not doing what he should be with a guy that high, because that's not what it's about. But maybe he's looking to him too much. Maybe because of the stats or the attributes, he's trying to force it with him instead of taking what the defense is giving to him. So I'm going to, until he shows that he can change maybe his game planning with the Browns, I don't think that the Browns are going to make a lot of noise in the division. The Ravens, I liked where the Ravens are at, and I think the Ravens have the potential to be a wild card team. I don't see them to be a division winner, but I do like the way they're trending as far as the way that they're building the team with the weapons that they have. And I think if you plug in a few positions, either via through the draft or free agency or building some of the young players with XP, I think the Ravens could be a contender soon. But I don't think they're ready to take the big step this year, at least in season one. Steelers, tough road to hoe. We talked about the age of the team. I applaud them for being 2-1 at this point. I applaud them for doing what they're doing with a guy that doesn't, again, dazzle anybody at the quarterback spot, but he's continuing to do it. So we'll see how he does with him. But I'm going to say that the Steelers definitely have an uphill climb in the AFC North and the AFC as an overall. So that leaves us with Domino and the Cincinnati Bengals. Who day? Day Allen is the guys that are going to win the AFC North. I think there are too many weapons. They are youthful. Domino is a good owner. I think their schedule is favorable. I think that he is in a great position to win the AFC North. I don't know if Domino's ever made it out of the second round of our playoffs. But again, like I said earlier, I think he's better set up now with the weapons that he has than he has ever been. And I think that Domino's going to make some noise. Obviously, I'm going to pick him to win the division, and I'm going to pick him to make some noise, at least win one game in the playoffs. He's got a bye week this week. He's coming up next against Matt Maturo and the Patriots, who we talked a lot about tonight. So not an easy game there. I think if he gets by the Patriots, next up he's got the Panthers, which is a very winnable game for him, and then he's got the Colts. I think that a Domino right now is sitting at 2-1 going into the bye. If he comes out of the next 3 games, another 2-1, right? And he's sitting at 4-2 going in against the Ravens, then the Jaguars and the Browns, 2 out of 3 divisional games. Look out, man. I'm telling you, when you look at the schedule and you look at the teams that he's going to face and the owners, not an indictment of the owners that are playing those teams, but I think that the talent that's available to them is going to be a challenge. Dude, I don't see any reason why Tim Domino can't win the North, and maybe by a few games. I mean, he closes out against his last 3 games are against Shizani and the Browns, the Broncos, and the Steelers. Those are 3 incredibly winnable games for him. I'm telling you, the Bengals, and hopefully I'm not putting the curse on them like I did on Norman, but this team could finish as strong as like 13-3, 12-4.
Forgive me if I get the impression wrong. It's been a little while since I've listened to him. But in the words of Jim Rome, no way is Cincinnati winning this division. No way are they going 13-3 or 12-4 or anywhere near it. I'm sorry. I love Domino. He's a good owner, and he'll bounce in and out of the playoffs sometimes. It's not happening this year. First of all, there will be no wild cards that come out of this division, whether it's Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or Baltimore, or if Shizani makes a comeback, no one's getting a wild card in this division. The rest of the division is way too strong. I mean, we talked about the AFC West earlier with you and the Chargers and the Broncos, and now you got Sim Cotty coming into it. We might have both wild cards coming out of that division. And there's no way that I see this lack of offensive output sustaining over another 13 games and this Cincinnati team only losing 1 or 2 more games. Nope, I'm giving this division to the aging Pittsburgh Steelers and the superstar who has risen. Well, can you say he's risen from the ashes because he never had anything to burn from? But Brian Hoyer, who is lighting the rest of the league on fire. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now are playing the way a winning football team should play. The Cincinnati Bengals right now, I haven't watched the games. I'm only going off stat lines, and stats can be deceiving. But what I'm seeing right now is a team that's just making it to the end of the game. You know, you and I had a conversation a long time ago about a great 49ers quarterback named Sean Hill who had a winning record in all of his starts. And something you said to me is, you look at a player, and when you look at Sean Hill, you don't say, wow, look at the play he just made. You look at him and say, wow, look at what he just got away with. And that's what I see out of the Cincinnati Bengals. They are the Sean Hill of the AFC North. Pittsburgh is going to be the one and only postseason appearance for the AFC North this year. I'm not going to say they're going to run away from the division because Domino is a good player, and he has a good team there, and he's always a playoff contender. He doesn't always make it, but he's always in contention, and he will be in contention. And if the AFC wasn't so strong as it is, he might sneak in with a wild card, but I don't see him getting a wild card with the strength spread around the AFC. And I like what I'm seeing out of Pittsburgh just a little bit more than I like what I'm seeing out of Cincinnati. And I don't like what I'm seeing out of Cleveland. Cleveland might be fighting with Josh Norman for the #1 pick this year if this keeps up. I'm going to go ahead and give my rundown. I'm saying Pittsburgh's winning the division. Baltimore's getting second place, but no wild card. The Bengals are going to get away with third place, and Shazani and Cleveland are going to sit there at the bottom of the cellar like Cleveland teams do.
You don't – okay, now, all right. Now, I appreciate your opinion and your rundown there, and you make some very good points. But are you sure there's not a little bit of fandom creeping in there with your Steeler pick?
Well, in Madden terms, it's a completely different ball game. I mean, I didn't hate the Seahawks in Madden last year because, with all due respect to a great owner in Derek Peters, the Seahawks weren't a threat to me in the division. It was R.J. Ramondo and his Cardinals, or even Bullock Badass and his Rams that were the threats to me. It got to a point last year where the Seahawks I circled those games as wins. So Madden fandom and real life fandom don't translate. I see what you're getting at, but I have no connection to this Madden Steelers team that's starting Brian Hoyer. To me, they're just some team that's up there in another part of the league, and nothing against the owner, but from what I'm aware, this is a newer owner that I'm not even all that familiar with. The Pittsburgh Steelers and WestOne are just another team to me. So I see what you're saying about the fandom, but real life fandom and Madden fandom don't exactly translate. I mean, my Niners are different, of course, because that's the team that's my favorite team and the team that I'm running. But no, I wouldn't put this one on biased fanboy homerism.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because and maybe I accuse you of that because I'm incredibly guilty of it. Because I have trouble with that. I have trouble not blurring those lines. I can't decidedly be unbiased when it comes to teams because I hate the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers and the Denver Broncos and the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't stand them. And so yeah, I have trouble drawing that line. Now, of course here on WestOne Radio, we are incredibly unbiased. We're like the Sims and Nance of the world here. We just call them as we seize them, Alan. But
absolutely. There's no editorial going on this show. Not one little bit.
None. And when we very first started West 360 back when Sonny had the Chiefs because he conceded the Raiders to me and he ran with the Chiefs so we could be in the same division. And he made it to the Super Bowl and we were talking, we were like texting back and forth, and I told him I hope he loses. And he was like, dude, you're going to root against me? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, how could you root against me to lose over like a stranger? And I'm like, because you're the freaking Chiefs. And he's like, yeah, but it's Madden. I'm like, I don't care. You're the Chiefs. I hate the Chiefs. It was funny because we had an interesting discussion going back and forth. He's like you. He's like, nah, that doesn't make sense. It's not the same thing. But to me, I'm like, no, you're wearing red. You are the Chiefs and you suck. I don't want to see the Chiefs with a banner. I don't care who's playing them. You know what I mean? So it's funny. That's another interesting discussion, I suppose.
And I get what you're saying. There is a little bit of that. I mean, Preston is one of I love Preston. I have not a bad word to say about him. He's the Seahawks, so he is my enemy right now. Although I am in a division with him, but I've been in Salty's boat. When I first got into the league, I ran the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, that's no fun for me to run the Arizona Cardinals of all teams, but I got into it. That was my team. That was the team that I ran. And when I had to face against the Niners, well, the Niners were my enemy. And granted, I lost because I was the Cardinals and I was new to the league and I was kind of the whipping boy for a little bit. But you just get over it. I mean, if real life translated to Madden, then my most hated teams would be the Seahawks and the Raiders and the Cowboys. And I'd, have a little hot sauce for the Ravens too. But when it comes to Madden, who are my biggest rivals? Who are the teams that, I go back and forth with, my most hated teams? Well, last year it was the Browns. This year, or not the Browns, I'm sorry. Last year it was the Bears. This year it's the Packers. The Falcons this year. Sonny is a rival for me. That I have no beef with the Falcons or the Packers in real life. Well, the Packers I used to, but that was more Brett Favre than it was the Packers.
No, it was all Tramon Williams. Come on, because he hates the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, you know what? I don't care about Tramon Williams. We've beaten the Packers, 4 times straight?
That's true.
But,
That's true.
It's a different ballgame.
All right, well, let's see. So let's wrap it up here. So I got the Bengals. You got the Steelers. Last week we covered the the NFC North. I took the Packers. Who did you pick in that one? I need to write it down here. I didn't write it down last week.
I think I'll say it. I gave Norman the benefit of the doubt that he was just in a dark place. But what he's showing me is that everything that I've said about him all summer long and going back to last year is the truth. He can't finish. He doesn't know how to win games. He was riding whatever it was he was riding last year to a bunch of regular season games, but then got his Peyton Manning on when it counted. So, and now this year he just decided to not even show up to the playoffs. So my pick for the NFC North was a little bit off. It's going to be Terry Donnett, but that was last week. So,
but you can't pull that. You can't pull that back, and the days are shorter and the winters are longer, and it's of course going to be.
I can't pull it back. I went on record saying Norman, and at least I can say I've never been happier to be wrong.
All right, well, here we go. We are at the end of a couple hours here, Alan. So thank you for joining us here on WestOne Radio. Thank you for all the callers tonight. And by callers, I mean K-Matt waving his nude shoulder at us and texting on his iPhone. And there he is. There's the hand. Thanks for joining us, K-Matt. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for anybody that's listened to us live. And you can always catch us after the fact on YouTube. We will have the link posted up on the Facebook page, so please check it out there. Hit the link and check out the show. You can hit me on Twitter, all that good stuff, at the Raider Gamer. Alan, where can they reach you at?
They can reach me on the Facebook page or on the pro boards. On Twitter, I'm Alan Murphy 408. I'm trying to be a little more active on Twitter with the league and everything. I actually posted on Twitter my broadcast of my game against the Cardinals this morning. So those are the best places to reach me. And on Twitch, I am Execution99, just like my gamer tag. So any of those places.
All right, well, hit us up if you got any feedback on the show, if there's anything you want to hear going forward, any questions, any answers, just any kind of feedback that's not an inflammatory Facebook post by one KMAT D. You can email us. I'm at the RaiderGamer at gmail.com, and of course all those other aforementioned places. So once again, Alan, we're at the end of a show. I'm telling you, these 2 hours fly by. This was a lot of fun tonight. I feel like we're finally in the throes of Madden 15, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going to go. Next week, we may be on a break. I know, Alan, you can't make it next week. I can, but I'm not going to run the show solo, so I'm going to see if one Mr. Salty West, Sonny, can make it in to help me out. If not, we may be on a hiatus. We may be on a break next week. But anyway, stay tuned, and we'll definitely get that up and post that on the Facebook page. It would be nice if we got Salty in next week, because we are going to go back to the NFC, and we're going to go to the NFC South for our next divisional spotlight. So once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of the league. Get your games in. Be kind to one another. Be excellent to each other. Thank you. We can't make it go without the 30 other guys. So appreciate everything you guys do. Appreciate you being part of West One. And have a good night. And we will see you on the next episode of West One Radio. Bye.